The rain hammered against my windshield like 1,000 tiny drummers, each beat amplifying my anxiety as I navigated the dark, winding road back home. The interview had run late, and now I found myself alone in the rural backroads of North Carolina, the late-night silence only broken by the rhythmic thumping of the rain. I squinted through the downpour, the headlights of my car illuminating nothing but sheets of water cascading down from the trees that loomed like ancient sentinels. Just a little further, I muttered to myself, trying to keep my focus. You can make it. I gripped the steering wheel tighter, my knuckles turning white. The only sound I could hear aside from the rain was the faint hum of the radio, which had long since succumbed to static and silence. Suddenly, the car skidded. It felt like I was on a roller coaster, the weight of the vehicle shifting violently as I lost control. My heart raced as I fought against the wheel, but it was too late. The car veered off the road and crashed into a gnarled oak tree with a sickening crunch. Everything went black. When I came to, I was engulfed in darkness, the only light filtering through the shattered windshield. Dazed and disoriented, I pushed the door open, wincing as it creaked like a ghostly lament. I stumbled out, the cool night air biting against my skin. What the hell just happened? I whispered, my voice barely cutting through the drumming rain. I stood there for a moment, trying to gather my thoughts, but my mind was foggy, swirling like the mist that surrounded me. As the rain continued to pour, I noticed a thick fog rolling in from the woods, wrapping around the trees like a shroud. I need to find help, I said aloud, the sound of my own voice offering little comfort. With cautious steps, I ventured down the road, my shoes squelching in the mud. The trees loomed over me, their branches twisting and bending in grotesque formations. It felt as if they were whispering secrets I couldn't decipher. It's just the shock, I muttered, shaking my head. Get a grip, Lucas. But every step seemed to deepen my unease, the fog thickening around me as I walked. I glanced back at the wreckage of my car, a sense of dread settling in my stomach. What if no one finds me? I thought, my heart racing. What if I'm stuck out here? After what felt like hours of walking, I finally spotted something ahead, a flicker of light through the trees. As I drew closer, I stumbled upon an old, rusted sign barely visible through the mist. Welcome to Eldridge Hollow, it read, the letters crooked and faded. Confusion washed over me. I pulled out my phone, hoping for a signal, but the screen only displayed a blank bar. No service? Great, I sighed, shoving the device back into my pocket. With a sense of foreboding, I ventured into the town, my pulse quickening as I took in the scene. Dilapidated houses lined the street, their windows dark and uninviting, streetlights flickering like they were struggling against the encroaching gloom. Is anyone here? I called out, but the only response was the rustle of leaves and the faint echo of my own voice. I felt a chill creep down my spine. There was something unsettling about this place, something that twisted the air around me into a palpable tension. I approached one of the houses, its porch light flickering erratically. The door creaked open slightly, inviting yet ominous. Hello? I called again, stepping onto the creaking boards. No answer, just the hum of the wind and the distant sound of rain. I peered inside, but the darkness seemed to swallow the light whole. Maybe someone can help me, I thought, stepping closer. But as I stood there, the whispers returned, drifting through the air like smoke. They were soft, almost pleading, but I couldn't make out the words. Is someone there? I asked, my voice quavering. The feeling of being watched hung heavily in the air, and I took a step back, uncertainty gnawing at me. This isn't right, I murmured, turning my gaze back to the street, a desperate urge to flee bubbling inside me. Yet I stood frozen, caught between the pull of the mysterious town and the instinct to turn back. I had no idea what lay ahead, but one thing was clear. Nothing about Eldridge Hollow was ordinary. I was in a place that felt suspended between reality and something far more unsettling, and I was just beginning to unravel its haunting secrets. The air felt thick with an unsettling energy as I stepped deeper into Eldridge Hollow, the fog swirling around my ankles like ghostly fingers. The flickering porch light of the house ahead seemed to beckon me, and I couldn't resist its pull. With each cautious step, the whispers grew louder, an unintelligible chorus that sent chills down my spine. I paused at the front door, my heart thudding in my chest, and knocked hesitantly. "Hello?" I called out, my voice trembling in the eerie silence. "Is anyone there?" For a moment, all I could hear was the wind rustling through the trees. I knocked again, harder this time, and waited. Still, no answer came. The whispers escalated, swirling around me like a storm. Panic bubbled within. I gripped the doorknob, my fingers cold and clammy, and turned it. The door creaked open, revealing a dimly lit hallway lined with old, dusty furniture. Stepping inside, the air was heavy with the scent of mildew, and the floorboards creaked beneath my weight. Shadows danced along the walls, and I felt as though 100 eyes were watching me. The whispers intensified, and I strained to catch a word, a name, anything. But it was all just a soft murmur, like a distant conversation I couldn't quite join. "Why am I here?" I muttered to myself, my voice breaking the oppressive silence. I wandered further into the house, my curiosity battling the instinct to flee. Old photographs adorned the walls, their frames cracked and worn. One caught my eye, a woman with striking features and deep-set eyes that seemed to penetrate my very soul. "Grandma?" I whispered, feeling a chill race down my spine. The resemblance was uncanny. Her smile was faint but warm, a stark contrast to the grief that seemed to emanate from her gaze. I reached out to touch the frame, and as my fingers brushed the glass, the whispers surged into a cacophony of sound. "Lucas, remember? Find us?" they echoed, the words swirling in my mind, wrapping around me like a shroud of desperation. I stumbled back, my heart racing. "What do you want from me?" I shouted, my voice reverberating off the walls. Suddenly, the whispers fell silent, replaced by a strange, suffocating stillness. I turned on my heel, ready to escape this haunted house, but as I stepped back into the hallway, I froze. There were figures gathered outside, their forms shadowy and indistinct, yet their presence felt overwhelming. They stood in a loose circle, their faces obscured by the fog, but I could feel their eyes on me, piercing through the darkness. "Who are you?" I called out, my voice shaking. "What do you want?" One of the figures stepped closer, a tall silhouette that seemed to shimmer in the dim light. "You must remember Lucas," a voice crackled, hollow and distant, yet it resonated with a familiarity that sent chills down my spine. "You have a connection here. You are part of us." "Part of you?" I echoed, confusion gripping my mind. "I don't understand." Their collective silence felt heavy, almost as if they were waiting for me to piece together a puzzle I couldn't see. Anxiety clawed at my insides. "What happened to you? Why are you all here?" The figure gestured toward the house, and the others began to murmur again, their voices blending into a haunting melody. The shadows around them flickered, and I felt the ground beneath me pulse with an unsettling energy, as if it were alive. "Find the truth," the voice urged, and in that moment, something clicked within me. "You were drawn to this place for a reason. Remember." Suddenly, the urgency of the situation crashed over me like a tidal wave. I was not just an observer. I was entwined in their story, caught in the web of their past. I stumbled backward, the realization hitting me like a freight train. "I need to get out of here," I gasped, turning to run. As I dashed back into the street, the cold air hit my face, and I looked around, desperate for some semblance of sanity. The figures lingered at the edges of the fog, their forms shifting like smoke, urging me to acknowledge them. I could feel their urgency, their desperation. I was trapped in this ghost town, surrounded by the echoes of those who had once lived, and now I was ensnared by their past. I needed to uncover the truth, to understand what had happened, not just for them, but for myself. But the fear gnawed at my mind as I glanced back at the figures, their eyes filled with a longing that mirrored my own. What had I stepped into, and how could I break free from this haunting cycle? The soft creak of the library's door echoed in the stillness as I stepped inside, the scent of aged paper and dust enveloping me like a blanket. It was a far cry from the chaos of the storm and the accident that had led me to this peculiar place. I could still feel the remnants of the adrenaline coursing through my veins, but now an insatiable curiosity replaced the fear. I was determined to uncover the truth behind Eldridge Hollow. The library was dimly lit, with tall shelves lined with books that seemed to whisper their secrets. I wandered through the narrow aisles, brushing my fingers against the spines of countless volumes, each one a gateway to a past long forgotten. My heart raced as I approached a large wooden table in the center, where I spotted a pile of old newspaper clippings. Dust motes danced in the air as I leaned closer, squinting to read the yellowing headlines. Tragic accident claims lives of Eldridge Hollow residents, one article read. The accompanying photograph captured a group of smiling faces, their eyes shining with life. But as I stared at them, an unsettling realization washed over me. They bore an uncanny resemblance to the shadowy figures I had seen lurking in the town. I could almost hear their whispers, echoing in my mind, urging me to connect the dots. "Excuse me, young man," a voice interrupted my thoughts. I turned to find an elderly man, hunched with age, but with a spark of intensity in his eyes. "You found the old news, have you?" "Yes," I replied, trying to mask my apprehension. "What happened here? Why is it not on any map?" The man stepped closer, his gaze piercing. "Eldridge Hollow has a story that few remember, and even fewer dare to tell. A curse was placed upon this town after that tragic accident. Those who died that night are trapped, caught in a web between worlds, longing for closure." "Closure?" I echoed, the weight of his words settling heavily on my chest. "But why are they reaching out to me?" His expression softened, and he gestured for me to sit. "Sometimes, the past clings to the living. You may have a connection to this place, perhaps even to those lost souls. They see you as a bridge, someone who can help them find peace." I leaned back in my chair, my mind racing. The faces in the photographs, the whispers in the air, the pull I felt toward the town. It was all too surreal. But how can I help? I'm just a journalist. The old man chuckled softly, though there was a hint of sadness in his laughter. "A journalist, yes, but you possess something more important, empathy. You understand stories, and these souls have stories that need to be told. They want to be remembered." A chill ran down my spine, and I felt a sudden connection to the town's plight. "What do I need to do?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. "Listen," he replied, his voice low and steady. "Listen to their stories, and you might just find the truth that has eluded them for so long." As I left the library, the weight of the old man's words lingered in the air. The streets of Eldridge Hollow seemed to close in around me, shadows flickering in the corners of my vision. I could feel the whispers growing louder, now echoing my name. "Lucas, Lucas." The voices were insistent, a chorus of longing and despair. "Who are you?" I called out, my heart racing. "What do you want from me?" The wind howled in response, carrying the whispers away as quickly as they had come. I staggered back, feeling disoriented. Was I losing my mind? Or was this town truly inhabited by restless souls seeking redemption? Determined to uncover the truth, I pressed onward, following the sound of the whispers that seemed to guide me. They led me to a narrow alleyway, where faded murals adorned the crumbling walls. Each illustration depicted scenes of joy, sorrow, and an undeniable sense of community. But as I studied them, I realized they were marred by something darker, an ominous shadow creeping across the colors, a foreboding presence that loomed over the town. "Lucas." The voice was clearer now, a blend of urgency and desperation. "Help us." I took a deep breath, my resolve hardening. I was here for a reason, and I wouldn't turn away. I needed to find a way to help these souls find peace, to uncover the truth behind the accident that had shattered their lives and bound them to this ghostly existence. But as I walked deeper into Eldridge Hollow, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched. The shadows danced around me, and I could feel the weight of their longing pressing down like a heavy fog. "Just wait," I whispered into the air, my heart pounding. "I'll find a way to help you." The air turned heavy as I approached the town cemetery, my heart racing and a sense of foreboding creeping over me. The fog clung to the ground like a shroud, muffling my footsteps as I stepped through the wrought iron gates. The gravestones loomed like sentinels, their inscriptions weathered and faded. I could barely make out the names as I walked among them, my breath hitching at the realization that many of them bore my family name. "Lucas Carter," I whispered, running my fingers over the cold stone of one gravestone. Panic surged within me, tightening my chest. What is this place? Why is my family tied to this ghost town? I felt as though I was standing on the precipice of a revelation, teetering dangerously close to uncovering something I wasn't ready to confront. "Who are you?" a voice called out from the shadows, sending a chill down my spine. I turned sharply, heart pounding, but saw only the swirling fog. "Why are you here?" I'm trying to understand," I stammered, almost pleading. "I don't know why, I just found myself here." The words tumbled out as I continued to scan the cemetery, the weight of the names pressing down on me. Each one felt like a thread pulling at my memory, weaving a tapestry of sorrow that I couldn't quite grasp. I moved deeper into the cemetery, feeling an invisible force guiding me. My eyes landed on a particularly unkempt gravestone at the far end, partially hidden by overgrown weeds. I brushed aside the foliage to reveal the name engraved there, Evelyn Carter. My breath caught in my throat as the realization hit me like a punch to the gut. This was my great-grandmother, the woman I'd only heard about in hushed family conversations. Her life abruptly ended in that tragic accident all those years ago. Suddenly, the whispers returned, swirling around me like a tempest. They echoed my name, merging with the wind. "Lucas! Lucas! Help us!" The urgency in their tone sent a shiver down my spine. I knelt before the gravestone, the weight of guilt crashing over me. "I'm so sorry," I murmured, my voice barely above a whisper. "I didn't know. I had no idea." A shadow flickered at the edge of my vision, and I turned to see the figures I had encountered before. Those shadowy forms that haunted the streets of Eldridge Hollow. They stood in a solemn circle, their faces obscured, but I could feel their eyes boring into me, demanding something I couldn't yet comprehend. "What do you want from me?" I demanded, my voice shaky but resolute. "What do you need?" One figure stepped forward, the air shimmering slightly as they moved. "You are connected to us, Lucas Carter. It's your blood that binds you to this place. The accident, it was not just ours. It was yours too." "Yours too?" I echoed, confusion swirling in my mind. "What do you mean?" "There is a choice you must make," the figure continued, their voice steady yet filled with an ethereal quality. "You can help us find peace, or you can turn away and embrace your own life. But know this, if you turn away, we remain trapped, forever lost in this cycle of torment." I stumbled back, my heart racing. "But I don't want to be a part of this. I want to go home." The shadows shifted around me, their presence suffocating. I felt torn, my instincts screaming at me to flee, yet a part of me yearned to stay, to understand more about this connection. "Home," another voice chimed in, softer, yet filled with an aching sadness. "What is home, if not a place where you belong? You are a part of our story, Lucas. You have the power to change it." I felt the weight of their words settle over me, the gravity of my family's history intertwining with the ghostly figures before me. "But how can I help? I'm just a journalist. I don't have any special powers." "You have a voice," the first figure said, stepping closer, the shadows swirling around them. "You can tell our story. You can bring us closure." The cemetery felt alive, the gravestones leaning in as if straining to hear me. My mind raced, the echoes of the past crashing against my present. "Closure, but at what cost?" I whispered, as the figures watched, their presence both comforting and terrifying. I felt the weight of my decision pressing down on me. I stood amidst the graves of my ancestors, the whispers intensifying around me, urging me to act. Somewhere deep inside, I understood that the answer lay within me, buried beneath layers of fear and uncertainty. Would I embrace this haunting legacy or turn my back on the ghosts of Eldridge Hollow forever? As I stood at the edge of Eldridge Hollow, the weight of the town's sorrow pressed down on me like a heavy cloak. The fog swirled around my ankles, almost pleading for my attention. I could feel the energy of the spirits drawing closer, their whispers intertwining with the rustling leaves. They were all around me, trapped in this ethereal limbo, and I was their only hope. But the choice lay heavy on my heart: stay and help them find peace, or leave and abandon them to their torment. "Lucas," a voice called out from the depths of the fog, a voice that seemed to echo from everywhere and nowhere. It was soft yet insistent. "You must choose." "I don't even know what I'm choosing between," I shouted back, my voice breaking the eerie silence. "What do you want from me?" A figure stepped forward, barely illuminated by the pale light filtering through the mist. It was a woman, her face a mixture of desperation and hope. I recognized her. She resembled my grandmother. "We are bound to this place, Lucas. You have the chance to set us free." The gravity of her words sank in. I thought of my own life, the dreams I had yet to fulfill, the paths I hadn't walked. But something deep within me stirred. It felt as if I had known these people all my life, as if their pain resonated with my own. "What do I have to do?" I asked, swallowing hard. "Help us remember," she urged, her voice trembling. "Take us back to where it all began." I nodded, determination replacing the fear that had once consumed me. "All right, I'll help you, but you have to guide me." The figures around me began to hum softly, their voices rising and falling like a haunting melody. They led me through the fog, my heart pounding with each step towards the site of the accident. The road twisted and turned, and as we walked, I felt the ground beneath my feet shift, as if the very earth was alive with the memories of that fateful night. When we arrived, I stood before the gnarled tree where it had all happened. I could almost hear the echoes of laughter from a time long gone, the sound of metal crunching against wood, the cries of anguish that followed. I closed my eyes, willing myself to feel the emotions of that night. "Tell me your stories," I whispered, my voice barely above a breath. One by one, the spirits began to speak, their voices weaving together like a tapestry of sorrow. "I was driving too fast," confessed a man with weary eyes. "I thought I could outrun the storm. I didn't see the tree until it was too late," a woman added, her voice cracking. "We were all too caught up in our lives to notice the signs." I opened my eyes, looking into the faces of these lost souls. "You're not just telling me what happened. You're telling me who you were," I said, feeling a surge of energy flow through me. "You need to remember who you were, not just what happened." The ground trembled beneath me, and I could feel the weight of their memories pressing in, the pain of their regrets. "You're right," the woman echoed, her face softening with recognition. "We need to be remembered." "Then let me help you," I urged, my voice rising above the chaos. "Let me tell your stories. You deserve to be remembered." At that moment, the ground shook violently, and I felt the air crackle with energy. The spirits surged around me, a whirlwind of emotions and memories. "We are ready," they chorused, their voices rising in a crescendo. I closed my eyes again, grounding myself, and began to speak. On a stormy night in Eldridge Hollow, a group of friends set out on a journey, unaware of the tragedy that awaited them. My words flowed like a river, each sentence a bridge connecting the past to the present. Suddenly, a blinding light pierced through the fog, enveloping me in its brilliance. The warmth flooded my senses, and for a moment, I felt weightless, as if I were being lifted from the earth. I could hear the whispers growing louder, swirling around me, a symphony of gratitude and release. "Thank you, Lucas," a voice echoed, resonating in the depths of my soul. "We are free." As the light intensified, I felt a deep sense of peace wash over me, a connection that transcended time and space. But the brilliance was overwhelming, and I surrendered to its embrace, unsure of what awaited me on the other side. I blinked against the harsh brightness, disoriented as I found myself back behind the wheel of my car. The familiar hum of the engine filled my ears, and I instinctively gripped the steering wheel, my heart racing. Had it all been a dream? A figment of my imagination conjured by the trauma of the accident? I glanced around, hoping to see the comforting outlines of the trees lining the road, but instead, a dense fog enveloped me, obscuring everything beyond the windshield. No, 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 I muttered, panic gripping my chest. I slammed my foot on the accelerator, desperate to escape the suffocating mist. The road stretched endlessly in front of me, a serpent winding through the fog. I could barely make out the silhouettes of the trees, their twisted branches reaching out like skeletal hands. The memories of Eldridge Hollow flooded back, the whispers, the shadowy figures, the urgent plea for help. I shook my head, trying to dispel the images, but they clung to me like the fog, refusing to let go. Suddenly, a flicker of light caught my eye. I squinted through the haze and felt my heart drop when I recognized the outline of the same old sign. Welcome to Eldridge Hollow. My breath caught in my throat. I tried to convince myself I was just imagining things, but the feeling of dread wrapped around me like a vice. As I drove through the threshold of the ghost town, the air grew heavy with a palpable sadness. The dilapidated houses loomed over me, their windows like vacant eyes. The flickering streetlights cast eerie shadows, dancing along the cracked pavement. I pulled over, my hands trembling as I realized I was trapped in a loop, forced to relive the same nightmare. Why won't you let me go? I shouted into the silence, but the only response was the mournful rustle of the wind. It felt as if the town itself was alive, watching, waiting for me to understand. I stepped out of the car, the cold air biting at my skin, and I could hear them, the whispers, clearer this time, swirling around me like a haunting melody. Help us, Lucas. The voices echoed in my mind, and I turned, feeling the weight of their gazes bearing down on me. The shadowy figures emerged from the fog, their faces still obscured, but their eyes glimmered with desperation. I felt a chill run through me. Why are you doing this? What do you want from me? I demanded, my voice trembling. One figure stepped forward, and in that moment, the fog parted just enough for me to see their face. My own reflection stared back at me, my features twisted in fear, my eyes wide with confusion. No, this can't be. I stumbled backward, my mind reeling. The realization hit me like a freight train. I was no longer just a visitor. I was one of them, another lost soul trapped in this desolate town, forever intertwined with their fate. The whispers grew louder, an amalgamation of my thoughts, echoing back at me. Lucas, you're one of us now. You promised to help us find peace. The figure's voice was a chilling mimicry of my own, sending shivers down my spine. No, I didn't mean to. I pleaded, desperation clawing at my throat. I wanted to help you. I wanted to escape. But the townsfolk only watched, their expressions a mixture of sorrow and understanding. I felt their pain wash over me, a tide of sorrow that threatened to drown me. I realized then that I was not just a journalist seeking a story. I was a part of this tragedy, a thread woven into the fabric of Eldridge Hollow. As I stood there, the fog thickened once more, and the townsfolk began to drift away, their forms fading into the mist. You're one of us, Lucas, echoed the whispers, now a chorus of my own voice. Help us find our peace. Help us remember. I felt tears streaming down my face as I understood the gravity of my situation. I was now a ghost, forever lost in the echoes of the past, unable to fulfill my promise. My heart ached with the knowledge that I had become another lost soul, trapped in time, cursed to wander the streets of Eldridge Hollow, seeking a resolution that would never come. The last remnants of light flickered out, leaving me enveloped in darkness, my own whispers merging with those of the town's inhabitants, destined to roam the haunted streets for eternity. If you like this supernatural story, subscribe, like, and comment, and see the next supernatural horror story.